Meow, 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 meow. Everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey everyone, Cantonese Cat here. Thank you for letting me having Monday off. I really enjoy being off, but I also enjoy making videos, so I'm back. I want to go through Bitcoin miners. Before I do that, I want to talk about IWM, which is the ticker symbol for the ETF that represents the Russell 2000 small cap stocks. There's a reason why I want to go through that. The reason why is because Bitcoin miner really depends on two things to do well. One is Bitcoin to do well. The second thing is the IWM index fund, which is like small caps. It also depends on whether or not that does well or not. The last time with Bitcoin miners really was able to have this breakout was when IWM was really have this big giant candle that broke through its previous all-time high to really allow some pretty bullish momentum in terms of truly having a significant risk on sentiment to come in. So far we don't really quite have that. We do have Bitcoin has been doing really well, but a lot of people worry about Bitcoin correcting. So what exactly is IWM doing today? It's been going through a pretty brutal month of correction for April. First of all, you're seeing a little bit of a bearish engulfing candle. I do want to say I'm not really too much worried about bearish engulfing candles for the monthly because they generally have a lot lower reliability in terms of working out well. I show you another bearish engulfing candle that didn't work well, which is this one right here. It was completely counteracted by a bullish kicker over here. So I wouldn't too much worry about that. There are some things that are just not going to work very well. For example, you have a potential bullish Harami candle, inside candle here. You would think that's going to end up being bullish continuation, but it's not. So I'm not really too much worried about the bearish candle over here so far. What I'm seeing here with IWM is actually completely not unexpected. It's unfortunately it has to play out this way, but it's not completely unexpected, and I'll show you why. You put up the Ichimoku cloud. What you're really seeing here is that it's doing something that is not surprising at all, is that even though it had a couple of very, very green candles over here on the month of March and in February, for April, the price just simply got a little bit too overextended away from the monthly Tenkan down here, and when price got a little bit too far away from the red line, the Tenkan here, it tends to serve as a little bit of a magnet and pull price down, either doing pulling price back down, or price can go sideways and wait for the Tenkan to catch up. It decided to do the brutal method to pull the price back down, getting closer to the Tenkan. But there are a couple of really positive development that is happening. First of all, it already had this fusion of this Tenkan and Kijun. Kijun is a blue line, which is a lagging line. Tenkan is a leading line. When those two get really close together, they fuse together. Generally, they precipitate a very, very powerful move that's about to come. A previous time that happened, these two kind of get a little bit close. They never really quite fused together on the last cycle, but they got quite really, really close, right? And whenever you actually have like the cross over here, which I anticipate to happen pretty soon. Whenever you have a cross over here, that's when things get potentially very parabolic, and that's when a true, like very strong bull trend could happen for about a year or so. The time before that was over here. You end up having pretty bullish price action for about 2 years or so. And the time before that was here. You end up having pretty bullish price action for about 3 years or so. Another thing that's also happening is it's not completely unexpected. Is it back tested the Ichimoku cloud over here today on the monthly. Back tested it. Guess what happens? Initially I thought that this was a little bit of a back test over here. Price got down, back tested, went up sideways, but actually ended up back tested again for the month of April. Now, this is actually not a bad thing because these back tests of the cloud, again, previously when it happened, was right before the bullish cross, right before pretty strong bull trend was to come. And the time before that, when it back tested, it went up for about more than 2 years. The time when it back tested the cloud, it went about for like more than 3 years. So you have a little bit of a back test here, get everybody all freaked out. Matter of fact, if you look at the weekly, it's been pretty brutal. 3 weeks, right? It's just been going down and down and down. But so far, it had a little bit of a back test here on the higher time frame. So all these are pretty bullish development. Are the wells still there? Look at the blackhead tells you the wells are still there. They're coming, having increased inflow still, despite a very bearish candle that we have in this month. Last time we have a very similar setup with a very bearish candle over here. You have another month of sideways over here, but inflow, there's no mistaken, inflow has been just steadily going up over here for months and months and months, right? Until the big giant green candle is to come here in November 2020. I think we might be still having a little bit of a sideways setup over here. Whales are coming in, but price did end up having a pretty brutal correction back into the top of Ichimoku cloud. But that's okay. So far there's not really any bad technical breakdown so far for the AutoBM. You're really still talking about the higher high, higher low, higher high, and trying to find a higher low here, and it's been finding support here so far. On the volume so far is actually not too entirely impressive, to be completely honest. So that's IWM. So what exactly does it translate to the Bitcoin miner stocks? First of all, let's look at what the Bitcoin miner stocks are doing. Instead of just going straight to the Ichimoku cloud, let's pull up what the whales are doing. Whales are still coming in. They're not really leaving, right? Although things are just kind of been consolidating here a little bit. The oscillator is basically saying, yeah, it's just been cooling off, right? It's not really like going down or anything like that, but it's just been cooling off. The whales are still there on the monthly chart. So what exactly is it doing based on all the other indicators? If you just look at the volume, you can tell the monthly volume has just been very, very impulsive going up. So there's a lot of people that have entered this stock, and so far there's not really any particular reason to think that they have left quite just yet. Just based on looking at the what the volume is doing exactly, is still very much going up. Now, it did got rejected in his initial attempt to get inside the inside Ichimoku Cloud over here for CleanSpark. This is a monthly chart for CleanSpark. But there's something that's very, very bullish that has happened for CleanSpark, is that CleanSpark did have a bullish Tenkan-Kijun cross over here. And right now, price, as it entered the Ichimoku Cloud, when price was around like 25, 26, somewhere around there, it just simply got way too far extended away from the Tenkan over here. And it is very reasonable for it to kind of cool down and kind of get closer to Tenkan. And exactly what it did. Got rejected from the Ichimoku Cloud, even though it ended up closing above the cloud. The month of April ended up getting rejected from it. And it's just kind of ended up back testing some of the Tenkan and Kijun right underneath of it. So far, it's finding support. The Tenkan right now is at 14.5, and it found support from there. And it ended up, sort of bouncing from that so far, right? And I think right now you're entering a pretty important confluence zone over here, support around 13, 14. I think it's probably going to end up providing support. A lot of people are scared because they all focus on volume shelf. It broke down below this volume shelf. Well, no, it broke down about below 15. It's going to go all the way back down to like these crazy levels down here, like 11.5. Can it do that? Certainly. But you're ignoring a lot of potential support up here. Just because there's not any, volume support over here doesn't mean you're not going to find support. I'm going to pull up an example to tell you exactly why I think it's, not a very smart thing to just look at the volume shelves. One example that I would like to pull up is Palantir. Why do I think that is a faulty thing to think that things are just going to, based on volume shelf? Is this. You know how price spent about like 8 or 9 months over here at these particular levels over here? You would think that is all because it's been stuck around this volume shelf over here, right? Well, the volume shelf didn't really exist until price went sideways over here. There was no volume shelf from here all the way down. This is an empty area. The volume shelf here got created as price went sideways for a very long time. It is a very much of a faulty thinking to think that price has to absolutely just dump all the way down to the next volume shelf underneath, because as price went sideways to test some of these technical supports over here, which right now you're having some pretty important technical support over here. The monthly Tenkan is no joke. It can serve as support. It can serve as resistance. Is so far as flipping from resistance to support over here. It's just basically back testing the monthly Tenkan here as support. So there's no reason to think that actually has to go drop down some of the lower levels down here like 11.5 or anything like that. That's a faulty thinking. This over here, the monthly Tenkan again around 14. The monthly Kijun right underneath is around 13.2. Those are also some pretty important level. Right now, if you look at the weekly chart, if you look at the weekly Ichimoku Cloud, it also gives you the Tenkan and Kijun cross over here, right? And tells you that it's still a very, very strong weekly trend. Right now, what you're seeing here is that the weekly Kijun, the blue line over here, is also around 14, and it back tested that level over here too. right? So there's a little bit of a confluence over here, and if you also look at the confluence for the other indicators, for example, if you pull up the weekly moving averages, you can see that price actually did bounce off of this another confluent area around like 13.74 is the 20-week moving average. Price bounced back here too, back when it was around January when things went down pretty far. Had to find some kind of support level down here. Found support at a rising 20-week moving average. Currently is kind of doing the very same thing. Doesn't mean that it's not going to go down further, right? But now you're really starting to see a confluence of support levels, both in terms of the weekly, 20-weekly moving average, both in terms of looking at the weekly Kijun at the blue line over here, and also both in terms of the monthly support. So you're really looking at multiple time frames, you look at multiple support levels over here. I'm not going to worry about this volume shelf because I'm seeing a lot of supports. And it is not unexpected for price to get rejected from the Ichimoku cloud on its first couple of tries because you're still got a pretty big volume shelf resistance over here, and you got the Ichimoku cloud resistance over here, and it got simply a little bit way too far away from the Tenkan, and it's just basically back testing a little bit. And so far, it looks like it's back testing. So far, it looks like it's finding pretty decent support. And so far, the month has been about halfway, and the volume is about halfway from that. So I'm actually okay. Like, this is not anything that is super concerning right now. Is simply trying to do a little bit of back test and trying to find a little bit of a higher low. How low is the higher low going to be? I don't really know. How is the higher low going to be all the way down to 11.5? There's always a possibility, but I wouldn't necessarily count on that because you're at a pretty significant confluence of various support levels over here. I'm also going to show you another thing here too, is what is the Bollinger Band doing? The Bollinger Band is expanding up and down. 20-month moving average is still going up, so this tells me this is probably going to be close to the beginning of a pretty sustainable bull trend because 20-month moving average is still pointing up. As a bull market goes, this is still a bull market, and when a bull market is happening, when the Bollinger Band continues to expand up and down, usually the top of the Bollinger Band, upper Bollinger Band is going to serve a little bit of a magnet moving forward on the longer term. Right now, the upper Bollinger Band is around 16.8, so I would not be surprised as Bollinger Band continues to expand over the next month or two. It's going to continue to serve as a magnet to pull the price up further as the Bollinger Band continue to expand, continue to allow price to go up higher, continue to allow the bullish movement to kind of go up, right? So I just kind of show you that we're at a very, very interesting confluence level over here, and also have shown you that this is a bull trend. Like, this is arguably, like, it's not even arguable, this is a weekly bull trend because 20 is about 50, is about 100, and all three of them are pointing up. This is a very, very nice bull trend. I think if you buy into something like that, if you buy into something that's at pretty clear key support levels, you're probably going to end up doing very well in the longer term. Although shorter term, there's no guarantee it can keep going down, right? So far is nothing but just basically back testing some of the very important breakouts that it had. It is simply back testing a cup right here. It broke above this cup level down here. They had a lot of price history down here and here, and simply back testing this range right here. Is it going to go all the way back down to the bottom of this range over here to like 12 or something like that? Possible, right? But it doesn't have to because it is finding a lot of support levels. It did the same thing last time, and a lot of people got freaked out. It basically just did the same thing, and it's doing the same thing over here. So far, there's not really any particular reason to really get super concerned about it. If you look at the Fibonacci levels, to try and find if you see any confluence in terms of support zone. I mean, you could draw from here all the way down to the cycle bottom, and you can see that it's been a little bit rejected by the 0.5 Fibonacci level here, but it's not going to necessarily tell you in terms of where or not you're going to find support zone here, right? So if I end up drawing the top of the Fibonacci from here going down, you can start seeing, hey, you do have a little bit of a confluence down here. We're getting close to a little bit more of an important level over here, which is the 0.618 Fibonacci retracement level, around like 14.5 or somewhere around there. So we're getting a little bit closer to perhaps another confluent area where it could potentially serve as support, right? we're at all of these kind of levels. Like, can price go down further? Sure, it can, but we might be at a level where it might be starting to get a little bit more and more attractive to get into. Just another thing, just to show you like why I think price is getting a little bit more and more attractive, is simply just look at the volume during this downtrend. During uptrend is a lot of big buying volume, right? And this during this whole sideways consolidation over here, the volume just been plummeting. Same thing happened last time. The pump over here, big volume, sideways and downtrend, low volume, until volume comes in again. This is what a bull trend looks like, by the way. How do I know that there's still a lot of potential bullish momentum that is building up on its way up? One thing to look at is you want to get ahead of a downtrend to see when it could potentially reverse. Now, this is still a downtrend so far in the short term. On a long term, this is a bull market. This is an uptrend, right? On a short term, this is still a downtrend. How do you get ahead of this downtrend and see when things could potentially reverse? The one way to do is to look for divergence. And the way to look for divergence is you can pull up the RSI indicator over here. And what you're going to do is you look for any discrepancy between price either going up or going down and RSI going the other way. What you're going to see here is something that's very clear to me is from you've drawn from a point through here with price going up from really from like $8 all the way up to like 13 or 14 range right here, right, which is where we're currently at. If you look at the RSI, very interesting thing at this particular point right there, the RSI was in the 70s and price went up, but RSI had reset it all the way down to the 50s. So initially it was really overheated, but it's not overheated anymore. The RSI reset over here with price going up, this is called a hidden bullish divergence. And that's kind of exactly what we're seeing is a hidden bullish divergence. It's anticipating a potential increase and move up here. Now, why do we end up having a pretty brutal leg down over the last few weeks? Isn't this a very bullish stock? Why does it just keep on plummeting down for weeks and weeks and weeks and it just wouldn't end? At least that's what it feels like. The reason why is because I showed you a few weeks ago that there was a bearish divergence over here. It's being built up, price went up, but RSI looks like it was kind of a little bit exhausted, just kind of go sideways. Guess what? I think the bearish divergence is really starting to play out. But guess what is building? It was that bullish divergence that I was just showing you. That is the current big thing that's happening right now, is having this bullish divergence that's been building up, hidden bullish divergence being building up, allowing RSI to get reset and allowing price to go up a lot higher. This whole thing right here, with consolidation going down like this, is happening on declining volume. This is very favorable for potential trend change because all it needs is just a little bit of volume to push the price up and it can go up a lot further. Is there an example in addition to the bearish divergence immediate before that has worked out? Is there another example of these divergences potentially have worked out before? Let me see. One thing is I do see a couple of divergences over here. One divergence that I do see was a bullish divergence. You see price went down here and you see that the RSI down here is actually going up. So this over here is a traditional classic bullish divergence, if you will, and guess what? Price went up. So these divergences, they do work out. Now, can price keep on building and strong divergence as it goes down? Yes. Is that reward increasing if you continue to have a strong divergence? Yes, right? Just because you have a divergence doesn't mean that's the downtrend stops here. All it means is that things are getting more and more and more favorable and there's more and more bullish energy that could be building up. Now, with that said, I cannot emphasize enough that traders are the ones that cause volatility, but institutions are the ones that are coming in, and the institutions are really when they're setting the floor price. What I mean by that is, what are the institutions doing exactly when it comes to CleanSpark. Does it mean that a recent downtrend over the last 3 weeks, the institutions are leaving? To the contrary, if you pull up the data from fintel.io, and if you can look at the institutional accumulation, you can still see that the whales are still accumulating. Like, this has been going up very much on an uptrend all the way up here, and there's really not any like updated data to show that the whales are really leaving per se. So the institutions are really coming in. They're not really like buying heavy or anything like that at this point. They're trying to get the lowest price as possible. They're trying to set a floor. And they have been buying, because if they weren't buying, if there was no buying pressure, this thing would have plummeted. So there are people who are buying. Traders, as they continue to start getting the lower part of this range over here. Again, the lower part of the range is like in the teens, right? The higher part of the range is like the low 20s. As it gets lower down over here, especially when it gets to closer to support levels down here below, they're going to have more and more traders that can buy, but institutions can also end up coming into buying as well, which is kind of what happened over here. Like these big giant green candles over here, they're institutions, they were buying, right? The institutions set the floor, even though the traders cause volatility. At some point, traders are going to be done, especially when it gets to the bottom of the range with selling, and they're going to end up coming and buying. When is that going to come? I don't know. I think we might be getting pretty close, but I don't know for sure. Now, that's all I have for CleanSpark. I'm going to go for the other miners here real quick. One other big ones that a lot of people care about is Mara. Guess what Mara is doing? Mara has just been ranging from this level over here to this level over here. It's really been going from like the high 20s, low 30s, and to the teens, around like the 14s down here. It's just been ranging here for months. Traders have been extremely happy with this range because they get to trade in and out, in and out, in and out. There is a little bit of a weekly gap for Mara. The weekly gap's not going to end up closing into 13.7. Generally, the closure of a weekly gap can be very, very, very strong support or resistance. In this particular case, if we end up going down and close the gap around 13.7, that could potentially serve as a pretty decent support, and price might actually end up bouncing from that. Now, but this is just basically range bound, right? You want institution to come in and really set the floor price. What are institutions doing for Mara? Institutions are buying. You can see big, giant buy institution accumulation up here. Both for CleanSpark and for Mara, they're about 40% accumulation. 40% institutional ownership right now. A little bit higher, actually. So institutions are coming in, they're here to set a floor price, when traders are just causing these giant volatility up and down. Guess what's happening to the volume? The weekly volume is showing exactly what's happening. The selling volume is getting exhausted. You're starting to get to a range where you might end up getting a lot of buy pressure, especially if it ended up getting down to like 13.7. You know how I also think this range over here, this is like maybe the bottom range over here, is pretty important, because if you do the Fibonacci level from the cycle high to the cycle low, guess what you're seeing? You're also seeing we're getting really, really close to the Fibonacci level over here, the 0.136 Fibonacci level over here. Matter of fact, it looks like we just kind of touched it today. I wonder whether or not we have bottomed. No guarantee though, because there's still a little bit of a gap underneath. But again, the lower the price goes, the higher potential reward you might end up having if you end up buying, because this is a range and because volume has been declining. Again, none of this means that you're not going to end up having further downtrend. All it means is that it's looking like the risk reward is favoring to the bulls if you're bullish right now. Again, none of this means anything. These are just guesses. These are just estimations. We're all trying our best to make best guesses, but I think it's pretty good. If you look at a volume shelf, what is it doing? I mean, does it have further volume shelf down to 13.4, 14.5, 14.6? You do, right? I think you're starting to enter a pretty strong support zone down here. And there's a strong possibility that you might not even have to go down that much further, because we're range bound over here. You might end up waking down below a little bit further. But I think we're getting to a little bit of a safer and safer zone as it continues to go down. I mean, none of this is a mystery to you. You want to buy low and sell high, right? If it's a ranging up here between the 30s, low 30s, and the teens down here, of course it's going to be a lot more favorable than buying down here, especially volumes going down. Volume shelf also telling you that you're getting pretty close to some of the support levels down here. Doesn't mean that this gap is definitely going to close and you're going to end up buying here. You're going to end up, just set a buy order at like 13.7 and you'll be golden. Not necessarily. Not all gaps get closed. There are a lot of people who might end up front running this and they might end up buying down here. It might end up bounce from here, right? There's no guarantee. That's why it's kind of important to kind of find a range where you feel comfortable and just trying to scale in as much as you can, right? If you're questioning whether or not this is still a bull trend, I mean, it's been a bull trend for a very long time. It's just basically been kind of riding this whole channel up over here. And if you look at the weekly moving averages, it's telling you that 20s over 50s over 100, 100 is pointing up, right? So this is a weekly bull trend. I don't think there's anybody who really, should think otherwise. If you are looking at the monthly chart of MARA, it looks very, very much brutalized. But guess what this whole look right here looks like? I just showed you earlier in the video. It looks like IWM. This is almost like a leveraged version of IWM because it looks exactly like that. The monthly chart gives you a little bit better idea. If you pull up some of the more important indicators, Bollinger Band, it is kind of a little bit contracting because it's consolidating here for quite some time, but price still spend majority of the time at the upper part of the Bollinger Band. 20-month moving average is still pointing up. The closer it gets to the 20-month moving average, I actually think the more risk reward, higher reward over risk you get, right? Because what happened over the last cycle, after back tested the 20-month moving average over here, boom, right? So this is actually not the end of the world. Break over the 20-month moving average, maybe even back tested around like 13 point something, right? Actually 12.69 right now. I hope it doesn't go that far. But is it necessarily a bad thing to end up breaking down below and do something like this? No, right? Again, it's still pointing up, so it's probably going to end up starting as pretty decent support. And I think we're still kind of equivalent to this area over here. We're still just kind of consolidating, building up a lot of energy before going up further. If you look at the Ichimoku cloud, it keeps showing this. Price had a bullish cross over here, just like it did over here, right? Between the Tenkan and the Kijun. Price is currently underneath both, just like it was over here. It could spend another month or two underneath, I don't care. Consolidating down here a little bit, I don't care. Volume's plummeting. This downtrend seems to be a little bit exhausted. When it's exhausted, when you have big giant accumulation from whales that's been going on for quite some time, I think that you're going to end up having price going up, potentially hit the cloud, potentially break the cloud, and just keep going up. That's what my suspicion is, right? I still remain bullish based on what I'm seeing, because so far I'm not really seeing anything that is really getting me concerned. Just pulling up here, the weekly chart again. I'm gonna get rid of the volume shelf over here. It's not really telling you too much more anymore. What other things can you look at? Are there any momentum indicators that are going to tell you that, hey, maybe the downtrend's over? Let's look at RSI. You see any divergences? Well, initially I saw some bearish divergence over here. Price kind of went up a little bit, but RSI really just looked kind of exhausted, right? So yeah, you got a bearish divergence over here. Guess what? The bearish divergence has already worked out. You have it licked down. What is the primary thing that you're really seeing right now? Do you really see any bullish divergences? I mean, I don't really. I mean, price did end up going down here, and you end up having significant RSI reset. It's not really like a true kind of, bullish divergence that you think of, but certainly doesn't seem to have any bearish divergences anymore. I think that part right there, that's already kind of worked out. So I think we're okay with the RSI. What about another indicator to look at? Is there any divergence you look at on balance volume as opposed to price? You do have some divergences over here. You actually do. One divergence is, like a lower time frame from here to there, when you have price just kind of went down, but volume, the buying pressure actually was going up. Interesting, isn't it? Is there another divergence that you can spot over here? Well, I can spot one right there. Price went down from here to there, right? Guess what happened with volume? Volume went up. So this is a pretty interesting bullish divergences over here between price and the OBV or unbalanced volume that's been building up. Generally, it does serve as a lot of bullish momentum for you to potentially price up a lot higher after this works out. Now, just because you see a divergence doesn't mean that you're not going to continue to have like downward trending prices, right? But when you see these kind of divergences, it makes you think, right? What happened last time we have a big divergence like that went on for a very long time? And this divergence just kept building, right? Like you don't know when this is going to end. It's pretty scary, but you have a bullish divergence over here too. Guess what happened when the bullish divergence is over? Price went from what, like $3 all the way up to what, like 20? It's pretty nice. That's Mara for you. Bitfarms. Looks the same. Bitfarms looks the same. I have nothing else to really add. Bitfarm looks just like Mara, and Bitfarm looks just like IWM. Although it's not as strong, but it was also very strong over here. I think it's just basically correcting down to this range over here and doing a back test. Again, Ichimoku Cloud, bullish cross, price underneath, just like Mara. If you look at the Bollinger Band, the same thing, right? There's really no difference between these two. If you look at the volume shelves, same thing. I mean, like, you're going to have a lot better support down underneath at these prices down here, but there's no guarantee it's going to go down further, right? The thing is, there's not really a weekly gap for Bitfarms, and if anything, Bitfarm has just hit the lower part of the Bollinger Band. This sometimes can serve as a pretty decent support. And if you look at what Bitfarms is doing in terms of moving averages, I mean, like 20s over 50s over 100, same thing, right? Just like Mara, a little bit weaker, but just like Mara, you're looking at a lot of exhaustion of sell volume down here. That's been going on for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. You pull up and try to look for any kind of, divergences. One big divergence you can see is the unbalanced volume. Price went up and the unbalanced volume just went down. This is a very nice hidden bullish divergence. That's amazing, like how long this divergence has been going on. That's crazy. When was the last time something like that seemed to might have happened? Over here, right? Price went from here over here. The unbalanced volume, what did it do? It went down. It went down, just like that. What happened after that? Price went from around, what, like 70 cents? 70 cents over here, went all the way up to $2. It's pretty nice, isn't it? It's pretty nice when you have like these divergences, they're bullish divergences that play out. That was a hidden divergence, by the way. So yeah, there's that. Poor RSI. What's RSI doing? Is it giving me any kind of, bullish divergence? I spot run right here. Price went up from $1 to $1.70, right? Which is where we are right now, right? What did RSI do? Well, RSI ended up resetting even more. Price went up, RSI reset. That's a hidden bullish divergence. It's pretty nice. I mean, you have all these kind of very, very nice things that are happening. I would tell you, like, what happened with the last divergence, right? If price went up and RSI go down, what happened after that, right? Price went up over here, and you end up having RSI resetting. What happens after that? Price went all the way from like 90 cents all the way up to like close to $4. So you have all these divergences there in play for Bitfarms, you have all these divergences there in play for Mara, and you have all these declining, exhausting volume. I think this is a pretty decent setup. I don't have much else to say about the Bitfarms in this case. Like there are still some support underneath below, but I really think that we're entering a range where the reward seems to be pretty decent over a potential risk that you might get. I want to add one more, another one that's been relatively popular and one that I care about a lot because I actually just started a position in CIFR, right? CIFR monthly chart, just going through real quick. Bollinger Band got rejected by the upper Bollinger Band, but 20-minute moving average is still crawling up. Still a very, very nice bull trend so far. If you look and see what the Ichimoku cloud is doing, it had a bullish cross back here. Price drop underneath the Tenkan so far, but still above the Kijun. It's kind of squeezed between the two, right? It's still a bull trend. That's what this bullish Tenkan Kijun cross is telling you. It's still a bull trend. What are the volume shelves doing? I mean, I can start away from this price history. It's still stuck at this big giant volume shelf over here. Looks like it's finding bouncing support from some of the pretty, strong support zone down here. Could it go down further? Possible. Does it have to? No. What is it doing in terms of the Fibonacci level from his all-time high to his all-time low? Not much. It's just been kind of going around sideways. Not really doing too much over there. What about the weekly? What does the weekly here show you? The weekly here, if you look at the trend itself, is still bullish. 20 over 50 over 100, all three are pointing up. This is a bullish weekly trend. What happened with this recent downlick over here? Exhaustive sell volume can be seen with all these buying peaks right there. They always come with these big giant buy volume candles, especially over here, right? These two right here, bam, bam, like somebody was accumulating over here. Selling volume decline, buying volume up, selling volume decline, buying volume up. This is accumulation. This is reaccumulation because the majority of the accumulation actually happened over here. This overall, if you zoom out and try to figure out what it looks like, this looks like a big giant cup and forming a second cup over here. This looks like it could be a handle of this cup over here with declining volume. This is a very nice setup. It could keep going down further, sure. There's always that possibility. But again, the lower it gets, I think the better risk reward you might end up getting from this. Looking at some of the other indicators, right? What about RSI? Is RSI showing me anything interesting here? Not really. I mean, I'm not really seeing any concerning bearish divergences. I'm not seeing any obvious bullish divergences over here. I think it's just been consolidating. What about the unbalanced volume? The unbalanced volume, not really telling me too much either. I'm not really seeing a whole lot of divergences. Like even here, I'm not really seeing any like bearish divergence. Like price just kind of went up when OBV went up. I'm not really picking up any like major divergences over here. But what I would say is this: the volume is telling me that this is something that's just an expected kind of correction down here on low volume. I started buying when I saw this very nice setup over here. I said I would buy whenever price is less than $5. I've been buying during this down leg over here. My average now is around $4. Not the greatest. I mean, I could have just waited and just put all my money down here or even lower, right? But to me, it almost doesn't matter because I feel that the trend is bullish. And I feel that whenever it ends up breaking above the green range right around here, I mean, it could potentially hit like $10 in a hurry. I don't really care where I buy it at, to be honest. But anyway, I've gone through a lot of the miners. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to try to make another video to talk about the other miners that other people also care about. But I just want to spend some time talking about the big four that I'm personally in, which is CleanSpark, MARA, Bitfarms, and also CIFR. I'll try to talk a little bit about the other ones here in a sec. Thank you so much, Beck.